Okay, it occurred to me earlier today. Let me pause this crap for a second. It occurred to me that I've never done one of these atheist can't answer nonsense videos. So I queued up a couple random ones, and I'm just going to try and shotgun answers because apparently these aren't supposed to be able to be answered. Now, incidentally, I am an atheist. Now, jokingly, I was voted an atheist because I refused to come out one way or the other for the longest time. And after explaining what I do think and believe, I was voted an atheist because there's no theo to me. I don't believe in God or gods. I usually say things like anyone or anything that's ever claimed to either be a god or claims to be speaking on behalf of a god has either been deluded or lying. This is pretty much my standard response on that. Now, I also came to my conclusion not through like hard research or any of these other things. Granted, some of it was looking at the text, but I had an innate sense of what some would refer to as divine as a child, and rejected pretty much every God notion that's ever been put before me because it just doesn't match with that sense. Now, in accordance to that, I'd say there are no gods. Not a singular one, not a multitude. There's just no God. There's no throne, never mind the throne being empty. This is just my standpoint. Sorry, that makes me an atheist, whether I want to be or not. Simply what I am. Now, how did I come to this conclusion? Long time walking the shamanic path, which I'm probably not going to really get into in this. But let's go through your silly little thing. And the first video in the set is by Insipid Walk.
That's Inspired Walk?
It's pretty fucking insipid, trust me on this. Let's just keep going.
Do you really believe that science is the only answer to all of life's questions?
No. Who should I marry certainly wasn't answered by science.
If God doesn't exist, why do you care if people worship him? Seriously.
Well, generally speaking, I don't care if people worship a god. I care what they do because of those beliefs. You know, if you believe in God, good for you. If you believe in God and it makes you want to go into a market and blow yourself up, I might have a little issue with those beliefs. A little one.
Can nothing create something?
Can you provide me with one instance of nothing actually existing? I also don't believe in nothing as a thing. I don't think nothing is a thing. Definitionally, it can't be because it's no thing. Why do I have to explain this shit?
If you've never been to the ends of the earth, if you've never been to every planet, if you've never been to every part of the universe, how do you know that God doesn't exist?
That would go back to the whole shamanic walk thing. I'm not going to get into that, but nonetheless, I don't think one needs to sit there and play hide or seek to try and claim that a god exists somewhere in the places we haven't explored. If you have a god that's supposed to be in everywhere and in everything, then it should be obvious, and it's not. Sorry, dude.
What is the origin of life?
Well, I don't know. Science is still working to try to figure out what the origin of life is. Wow, neat. They're actually trying to figure it out. Ooh, as opposed to just making up stories. And you're going by a story someone made up. Now, I write science fiction. I could come up with, I don't know, probably 20 stories off the top of my head just on a whim. Should I then advocate that people believe these stories? I can write them down and age the pages and make it look old, or just pick some other really old story. Does a story being old make it more legitimate?
If humans are animals, then where does our sense of justice, where does our sense of morality, where does our sense of what's right and what's wrong come from?
That's not one question, that's actually three. Our sense of justice is very different than our sense of morality. Now, our sense of justice can, in some cases, be vengeful or what have you, just kind of like the vengeful justice that's in the Bible at times, which is kind of childlike and petty as far as I'm concerned. You'd like to think that most would grow beyond that. This is why we've created governments and court systems and these kind of things so that justice can be more impartial, so it's not just vigilante nonsense. But then again, that's not really even what your real question is. You're trying to tie morality to God and the Bible. And based upon the Bible, I'd like to make a quick little note that there is actually a procedure by which God advises abortions. If you were really promoting some kind of biblical morality, what you would actually be promoting is that abortions be mandatory for anyone that's not part of your religion, as well as mandating that in the case of believed adultery, that abortion is conducted as well, granted by a priest in this case. And all people conducting abortions would not be doctors, but priests or soldiers. You know, cutting the little ones out of the stomachs, yada, yada, yada. We have a precedent for that. But nonetheless, this still isn't really your question now, is it? And this is why we can't really answer your questions to your satisfaction, because you never really ask the question that you want. Now, if we were to go to Scripture and go to this whole notion that morality is written on our hearts by God, considering how much we've grown in our understanding about morality and right and wrong and these sorts of things, and what justice is and isn't, then clearly if it's written on our hearts, none of us has ever figured out how to read the writing, thus making this entire question pointless and superfluous. Anyway, continue. We got a couple more.
If you were given irrefutable evidence that the God of the Bible is real, would you become a Christian?
Absolutely not. Once again, my conclusions are all based upon roughly 20 to 30 years walking the shamanic path. I've met many spirits along the way, many of which have tried to claim to be gods. This would just be another such claim. What would be the point? If I found out that this God of Christianity was real, it would be another pretender for the throne. Not impressed. Sorry, dude.
Tell me something. If evolution is real, and if evolution is really happening, how come there are no transitional forms that we can observe?
Okay, well, there's a couple answers to this, one of which is you've obviously not looked well enough, and the second one, hi, I'm a transitional form, how are you? And so are you, for that matter. Transitions happen over, we're talking generation to generation to generation to generation. You look at trends and appearances, for example, just within humanity going back 100 years, and you'll notice that there is significant differences. And this goes on as you move forward in time.
Do you live according to what you believe, or do you live your life according to what you lack in belief?
I live in accordance to what I believe. How would I live in accordance to what I lack to believe? And it's a weird question, dude. Have you thought about these before you ask them? You tried to check in your wording or see if they're even coherent?
If God doesn't exist and the Christian dies, the Christian loses nothing. But if God does exist and you die as an atheist, do you not lose more? Will you not lose your soul? Hebrews.
No, dude, you are so wrong with this. The Christian loses everything. Now, here's the way that it works. You have the spirit world, and you have essentially these little bubbles that are like the froth around it. Those bubbles are the little dimensions that you create for yourself after you die. These are created by your dogma. Now, eventually, if you hold on onto that dogma for too long and you can't allow yourself to actually pass through into the actual spirit world, what's going to happen is your soul will be lost forever. It will dissolve away, as will you. You'll be completely lost. Now, the atheists that don't have those dogma, we go straight to the spirit world. See how easy it is now, whether I technically believe this or not? See how easy it is to counter that with just another story?
11 verse 3 says, by faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible.
I'm really wonder why you put that one in there. Now, I've checked like 5 or 6 different versions. I don't know which version you were using, but the first 3 I checked. I was like, okay, that's wrong in terms of how it's conveyed, but to each their own, I suppose. Really, it doesn't matter. This isn't really a question. And things that are seen are made by things that are invisible. Are you trying to somehow connect this to atoms or something? I don't know.
Now, just because we can't visibly see something, it doesn't mean...
And incidentally, things that are seen are made out of things that we are seeing. It's kind of... Anyway, this is why I'm calling you Insipid Walk. I'm bored with you already. Let's move on. That one was covered by somebody earlier today. Let's see what we have next here. Let's see now. This is... I love Allah? Okay.
What are the questions that no atheist will be able to answer? A. How did existence emerge out of no space and no time?
What makes you think it did emerge out of no space and no time? You're kind of making an assumption there.
How can an atheist assume that his atheism is valid when the moment of the start of existence is a stark proof on the creativity?
Okay, once again, you're putting in assumptions here. But as to, well, let's get to the first part of that, because that reminded me of Shock of God. Let's go back here. I've not watched this one before. Okay. Let's see now. Come on,
A.
try again.
How did
How did existence emerge out of no space and no time? That's an assumption. Now, technically speaking, whether you believe in some kind of deity or not, the moment of creation would be the moment the time started, so it would have had to be created out of no time, whether you're an atheist or theist, frankly. Because time would have had no meaning beforehand, whether there was some kind of proto-time or not.
did existence emerge out of no space and no time? How can an atheist
And then we move on and keep going with questions, although how can an atheist assume that his atheism is valid? Atheism is not believing in God. It's not having a God belief. Now, if I don't have a God belief, my atheism is obviously valid. Just like if you have a God belief, regardless of what that God may be, then you are some kind of theist, and that theism is valid in that you have a God belief. Dude, this is poorly worded, poorly thought through.
assume that his atheism is valid when the moment of the start of existence is a start?
And here we go. And then we're going to assert that something's a proof here. Let me move this window so that y'all can see this stupid text I'm looking at here. Hang on. There we go. Add screen source, screen capture. There we go. Yeah. That's a nice big chunk. Okay. I'm going to have to make that bigger now. There we go. Okay, so he's couching each of these questions with his assumptions. One of which is that the moment of the start of existence is a star proof on creativity. Well, that's not necessarily the case, really. I mean, here's the thing is, we can't say that there was one moment when existence started. We don't really have the answer to that, and frankly, neither do you. You just have some ancient writings that claim to have the answer to it, which doesn't really mean much to me, and frankly, I think it means far too much to you. Now, in terms of the whole causal relationship between cause and effect, we can't say that there was a singular cause that in and of itself wasn't also the effect of other things. Over the course of human history, everything that we've ever labeled a cause has also been an effect of other events leading up to it. It's like a funnel going down and a funnel coming out from the bottom as well. That's just not how it works in terms of anything that we have in terms of our experience of the world around us.
Stark proof on the creativity of the Creator and his ability to originate existence.
It's not the proof of anything if you can't prove that the Creator exists to begin with.
B. How did no life transform into
B, how many freaking questions?
life? How did matter mutate from lifelessness into living cell? With all our technology,
Okay, this guy's just long-winded. How long is this piece? It's only 5 minutes. It shouldn't be that bad. Okay. Okay, how did life come from non-life? You do realize that what isn't alive has been, or makes something alive rather, is highly debated within the scientific community. There was a time period that we considered fire to be alive. Viruses, however, are considered not to be alive, although they do show some of the criteria of what we consider to be life. So the question really comes down to what you define as being living versus non-living in this kind of instance. So what course of chemical evolution would you actually say that something in and of itself was considered to be alive? If it's something as simple as the ability to reproduce, well, we've done that in labs. Actually, there's a great TED Talk in which they show it, and it was a mistake, frankly, that I think it was on their third or fourth time running the experiment.
techniques and advancements, we cannot, till this very moment, originate the simplest form of life. So how can we explain the origination of life in the dead matter? Wouldn't we have been at least able to originate a form of life that supersedes the one that originated in the dead matter by at least 1,000,000 times? C.
What the hell are you even trying to... See, how can the atheists argue against the annihilation of all mankind? What? Okay, he's going to have to go through this one.
How can the atheist argue against the annihilation of all mankind? What is the
Okay, well, easy argument against it. Who would I fuck?
rational, substantial, and scientific evidence an atheist can present to prove that annihilation of all mankind is a mistake?
Okay, I can't even really call this a decent straw man. The annihilation of humankind would suck for anyone that's human. Atheists happen to be human, last time I checked at least, we tend to be. How does this question make any sense? You're saying, why don't we go and kill ourselves? It's just kind of dumb. It's not even a good question, man. Try again.
The material world knows no
Now, here's the problem. We can answer these questions. They're just not good questions. Honestly, I'd have to admit whether I picked on them or not, the last guy had better questions than you did.
right and wrong. So annihilation of mankind must be equal to keeping them alive from their perspective. D. Atheism assumes that human beings are just animals who came into existence after a long and slow sequence of evolution from meaner beings. So what?
Oh, this is not going to go to a good place, is it? I was going to answer it there, but yeah.
What if a higher being came into existence? Will it have the
Okay, there, in terms of us being animals, yeah, we're animals. We're mammals. We're, anyway. I'm just going to cut to the chase on this one, because this is kind of this notion of that mankind is somehow superior to everything else. So what if something superior to us came along and basically enslaved humanity? Whether we could stop them from doing it or not, I would still consider that to be immoral. But this whole might makes right thing, yeah, most atheists don't go into that.
right to put us all in cages and use us as lab rats? The Darwinist answer that we derive from matter is
No, it is no. The Darwinist answer we derive is not yes. Now, why am I answering this? This is why I don't do the videos that are answering questions, because the questions are just so flawed and stupid on the face, even on the just surface for precursory glance. First off, a Darwinist answer is not yes. Being evolved to fit a different niche within the environment does not make you superior to something else. For example, if you look at the eyes of a hawk or the ability to run of a cheetah, for example, in these ways, they're far superior to us. But does that mean they have dominion over us? No. Do we have dominion over the other animals? No. No, we do not. Regardless of what your stupid book says. We fit our niche within the environment. We have our place within the food chain. Now, depending on where you are, that place will change. Because if you're in the savannah and there's a lion there, unless you happen to have brought a rifle and a hunting team, chances are you're the food group at that point.
Is yes.
No.
So, what's the purpose from protecting mankind or providing them with meaning or purpose when it comes to atheism?
We're not douchebags.
Atheism here is unable to explain the reality of man.
So the reality of man has nothing to do with kindness or compassion or working like we want our species to survive. We're only a minute and almost 2 minutes into this.
What if, according to evolution, we proved that one race is higher than the other?
I just told you that goes against evolution, dude. I'm not answering this.
Will the higher race be entitled to transform the lesser race into
That's
used
not how
matter,
evolution works,
as we
douchebag.
do with the lesser insects or animals? Again, the Darwinist answer is yes.
No, the answer is no, you hippobotanic landmass.
This very argument is enough to obliterate atheism from any mind that utilizes common sense.
This is enough is to obliterate you from anyone who's ever looked into evolution or what an atheist actually thinks behaves like, or dude, really?
Since the only criteria to
Have you
judge
ever met
who
an
is
atheist?
better than who is the criterion of God-fearingness, not by color or strength.
I'm sorry,
If-
what? The only way to judge who's better is by how much they fear God? What the fuck is the matter with? Oh, Islamic video. Never mind.
Atheists argue that morals are relative, meaning can be seen from more than one perspective. So,
Well, actually, there's all kinds of different views in terms of morality. I tend to go with intersubjectivity as kind of towards the core of it, but you're not even making a real argument here. You're just making more assumptions.
honesty can be better than betrayal, or betrayal can be better in some cases. Yet, when confronted with their own trials, they claim outright that morality is objective and that things like...
Didn't I just say intersubjective? I've not watched this before. Why are you putting the objective morality bullshit on me? The thing is, even if you are a theist and think that you're getting your morality from God some magic, weird, mystic way, that's still not objective morality. That's just... Let's see now, if I remember correctly, it's subjective ontology, but wait, is it ontologically subjective or epistemologically objective? It's one or the other. Damn it, I had to forget last moment here. I believe it's subjective ontology and objective epistemologically or something like that. I don't remember. Fuck it. Sorry, guys.
like honesty or betrayal are absolute.
Ask
Because
Ozzy, he'll
if
remember.
morals are relative, then immorality makes no sense, since we will never be able to set a line between morality and immorality.
If it, why wouldn't we? This is why we create laws. This is why it's intersubjective. This is why we debate these topics.
This is definitely a clear contradiction.
No, it's
Because
really not.
if morality was objective and absolute, then
But
this law of
atheists aren't arguing
morality
that.
must have had a lawgiver, the will of Allah, and divine accountability. If morality was relative,
Well, you're saying morality is relative to the mind of this Allah character, which is very immoral at times. So, yeah, talk to me more about morality. Go the fuck home.
then no atheist must complain from immorality or even comprehend its concept.
Straw
Gee,
man.
How did the amazing constants of physics emerge? All of
Could the constants of physics have been any other way? We have a sample size of 1.
these constants entail very intricate differences that must never vary, even
They must never vary, like the distance between the Earth and the Sun and how much it varies in a simple rotation, like how much the Earth's distance from things like the galactic core and what have you, and the black hole at the center of that vary, how temperatures vary on Earth. I mean, these constants, none of these constants that you're talking about, other than maybe gravitational constants and things like those, have much relevance. And even if those were changed, we don't know how much they could be changed before things would be different. And if things were different, we would be different. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't necessarily be here in some way, shape, or form.
slightest or minutest fraction, or the whole universe would collapse.
False.
For instance, the cosmological constant is fine-tuned to 120 decimal places, and if it was 1 decimal,
Mathematically, 120 decimal places isn't technically all that much, but
more or less, the whole universe would collapse.
we don't actually have any examples of this happening, so this is just an assertion.
This precision proves that accuracy of a great maker, noting that the constants are numerous in physics and all of them are intricately precise.
This clearly means that a scientist, the ancient Johnny, actually created our universe from the prior universe that he was in before the creation of this one. You see, his universe was kind of crap and was going to actually collapse because the constants were actually unwinding, so he created this one so it would be a little bit more constant. And for that matter, the black hole at the center of the universe and all the information it pulls in are simply there to help maintain the universe. This is basically like a fractal code that it uses to regenerate the universe on a daily basis. You see, all of creation is actually recreated at some point over the course of the night, and if you blink at the wrong moment, you'll miss it. I kept my eyes open all night, managed to see it once. See how easy it is to make up these ridiculous stories?
H. How did the genome emerge within the living cells?
Chemistry.
A code must require a coder, and
No.
this genome designates what each cell will be.
No, it does not require a coder, actually. If you look at things like ice crystals or the wear on sand and what have you, these are things that one could just as easily equate to being a code in terms of the way ice crystals grow, for example, without it needing a coder.
be used for. Doesn't this prove that there is a unique maker dictating very specific codes?
No, it proves that that Orphan Annie decoder rings are completely pointless, just like your questions.
I. Where did morality and values come from?
You kind of asked this already, didn't you, in a manner of speaking? We evolved it, and it continues to evolve. Now I'm talking more social evolution at this point, but yeah.
When it comes to atheism, atheism sees the universe as a tumultuous sea of atoms that makes no sense and have no purpose.
Yeah, other than the fact that we can actually see the supposed chaos and seeing them bond and all these other things, and all the reactions are quite predictable. What you're basically positing is that if I took a bunch of water and stuck it in the icebox, that it's chaos. Who knows if it would freeze or boil? It's just more dumb questions, dude.
Which was one of the driving motives to immorality and depravity. But since morality does exist, then atheism is invalid.
Yeah, because we don't have things like mirror neurons, because we don't have empathy, because... what's wrong with you on these questions, man? Why am I answering these? I should have looked at this video first. I'm sorry, I didn't know this was such crap. And God, there's another minute of it.
To sum up our argumentation against atheism, since there is
Straw
light,
man.
then there has to be a source for this light.
Straw man.
Since there is shade, then there has to be a body causing the shade. Since there are intricate objects starting from the quarks and ending with the galaxies, then there has to be an originator. The Quranic argument...
Do you make a real argument
Those
here?
who reject the book sent our messenger, and you turn away, even in trivia.
Okay. So we've gone to two religions that think the same bullshit arguments point to their religion. Well done! Nutters. Okay, what do we have for the next? Do I dare click on the next? Okay. Top 10 questions atheists can't
I'm a full
answer.
member of the local Baptist
You're quiet.
church. I just felt compelled to ask you atheists some questions about why you're atheists. Anyways, I'm just going to ask you some really basic questions. Like whenever I ask
I'm
anyone
going to
online,
modify the
like
volume.
on Reddit, they just fail to answer me, so I must be right. First of all, if God doesn't exist, why are there clouds?
Water vapor.
Like, is that not God's palace and kingdom? Like, does he not sit in the clouds? Like, you see clouds,
You're
we
a
all
Poe.
see clouds. Even
You've gotta
blind
be a
people
Poe.
know there's clouds up there because we tell them.
What's the next question?
It's like if trees never existed, but then we wouldn't have a concept of a tree, right? If God does, it's like if
Sorry, hang on.
if God doesn't exist, no other explanation than to say God. If God doesn't exist, then why do we have the concept of God? It's like if trees
Because somebody
never
made it the fuck up?
If God doesn't exist, then why are atheists so angry all the time? Like, what do they got to be angry about?
I'm
Obviously,
not. I'm a
there's
little
God,
annoyed at the
but they
stupid
wouldn't be
questions, though.
angry. If God doesn't exist, then what are all these churches for? Well, obviously, the whole point of the church being there is because there's a God. If there
Well,
isn't
your
one,
argument isn't that there aren't religions that
that's just
whether there's a God or not.
geography. I mean, now this is the biggest question that trumps every atheist I ever ask. If God doesn't exist, then how has anyone really been far, even as decided to use, even go on to look more like?
What?
I mean, let's get serious.
I didn't even understand what
If
you
God
were
doesn't
asking.
exist, then how can monkeys literally become apes and then into humans? But I still see monkeys today.
Not how evolution works?
If God doesn't exist, then why do atheists literally spend like 10 hours a day on the internet forums arguing against his existence? Obviously, because they...
The concept of God does exist, that I'll give you, but I really think this one's a Poe. These are either that are insanely stupid.
know he exists. That's why they have to argue against it, because they just don't want to accept it. If God doesn't exist, then why do atheists have neck beards all the time? Like every time I look at one,
I
there's a
shave
neck beard,
occasionally.
there's a fedora, there's a Richard Dawkins book. If they
I
do believe in
don't
God,
own
they
Richard
could get
Dawkins
their
books,
pimples on their
and I
neck
don't
here.
have a fedora. The elephant does wear a trilby, though, which some people mistake for a fedora, but it's a trilby.
But they don't. So they have neck
You're a
beards
fucking
and they
Poe.
have pimples and it's really gross. If they did accept God, like I do, I don't have any. I'm clean. I mean, if I can understand this, and I
Yeah,
have a
okay.
degree in with
acne is
studies
caused by lack of
majoring in
belief.
transgenderism
You're a Poe.
and black lesbian rights, then I think you can. If God doesn't exist, then
Okay,
why
the
are
numbers
Jews
are out of
so
sequence
rich?
too.
Because Jews are God's people, so he gets the money.
Okay, anti-Semitism bullshit too. Okay, you're gone. Goodbye. Next. Well, this is Insipid Walk. Is this the original video? Yeah, close out of that crap. Let's see now. Any other questions? Okay, there's the same video's answers right under it. Let's try this weirdo. Next.
This is 10 questions for every atheist.
Okay.
And it's some questions atheists cannot truly and honestly really answer.
So you guys
okay.
are fucked, basically.
No,
Yeah,
no,
so-
no, this is a show. This is a joke show at that. Okay, simple question. Okay, and then we'll go to 4 questions, and then I'll close the fuck out of it. This is now I see why I don't do these fucking videos. They're just stupid and pointless.
A scientific method is based on the collection of data through observation and experimentation. Science Daily.
Could you give me some observable evidence
Oh God, not
that
right,
evolution
Comfort.
is
No,
true?
no, no.
Something I don't
Good
have
grief.
to receive by faith.
I'm not dealing with
All
that
right,
idiot.
4 questions for atheists.
Okay.
Number 1. Why do atheists hate Jesus?
I don't. I don't even believe in Jesus. Okay. If there ever was somebody that the stories were based on, I don't think those stories have any relevance to who the person was likely to be. Just like with the whole, if you look back at who Reagan was and what he actually did, he doesn't map to the modern day propaganda as to what people claim he was like and what he believed and this kind of thing. Same could be said about L. Ron Hubbard or just about any other leader of a movement, whether it be political, religious, or what have you. So don't believe in him. Hate him. That's a dumb question.
The Christianity and the Bible over any other so-called God or false God?
Actually, I tend to dislike Scientology more than Christianity.
Number 2. Why do atheists attack Jesus? Discredit his words and his character and attempt to marginalize him, whether by ridiculing him or mocking him.
Well, in my case, I don't do that. What I do is I ridicule and marginalize Christians that don't actually follow the teachings while being hypocritical and claiming that they do.
More so than any other so-called gods or false gods. Number 3.
Oh, and incidentally, in the U.S., which you're obviously American, the reason why we tend to single out Christianity more is because there's more of you. Because you're the pains in the neck that keep knocking on our doors and try to force us to believe the same crap you do. And try to legislate the shit that you believe as well. Frankly, I think most atheists just would be would be wonderful just to be left alone.
How can you hate someone who you don't believe in?
We don't.
And my 4th question to the atheist is, do you realize that atheism proves Christianity?
What? What? I would have loved if he actually made the argument for that, but okay. That one was just boring. Let's see if we have another one. Question that atheists couldn't answer. What's this?
A scientific method is based on the collection of data through observation and experimentation.
Different definitions.
No,
Is
it's
evolution a
comfort.
belief?
No. I'm not putting up with comfort nonsense. Let's see if we could find anything else. Bum 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 bum. Screw it. I'm done.